This is a pay-at-table device that servers and bartenders will use every day in casual dine. Probably looks a lot like the devices that you have right now. The pay-at-table device just sits on the charging base here. And we actually have these labeled as far as if they are primary bases or not. A primary base will have an Ethernet cable. A base that is only used for charging will just have the power cable coming out of it. And a primary base will be labeled number 1, 2, or 3, depending on the number of devices in the revenue center. Will also be labeled with the revenue center number and the port number. That is important as far as when you look at the device, it's labeled with the revenue center number, a port number again, and then a sequence number 1, 2, or 3. So we'll have up to 3 devices that are paired with a primary base. And if you're walking around with these and you get out of range, you get to this lane closed, you want to know which base you want to approach to get a better signal. To reboot these, it's the same as with the tethered device. You're going to press the yellow key and the pound key. It will beep and turn off. If it's not on the device when you do this, or not on the base when you do this, you're going to press the green key to power it back up. But if it's resting on the base when you reboot, it will come back up on its own. This is processing a simple transaction on a pay-at-table device, assuming that the guest is paying in full on 1 credit card. So I'm going to say that this guest is ready to leave, and as a server, you'll come to the pay screen and press print check. You'll notice everything's in French here on the workstation and on the device as well, because our lab is set to Montreal. Once you have the printed check, you're going to check right here for the check number. This is 9898. And at the prompt for the check number, you're going to type that in. Green for enter. Now it's going to give you a prompt for language. FreedomPay is going to break that out separately, and then you get a choice of full or other. I said before, we're going to assume that this is paid in full. And this is the point at which you would hand the device over to the guest. The first thing they're going to see is the prompt for a tip. They'll get a choice for 15%, 18%, 20%, or other. Other will allow them to enter a dollar amount. I'm going to press 20% as the guest, and then put in my card. It will read the card and determine whether it should be in French or English and prompt accordingly. It will also determine whether or not a PIN is required. It's determined that the PIN is okay. Now it's authorizing, tells you not to remove the card. And then it beeps when it's time to remove the card and the sale has been approved. The first piece of paper is the merchant copy. You can tear that off. Press OK. Now you have the customer copy. That can go with the guest. You're going to press OK one more time, and then it's going to come up with this banner that says check paid in full. You'll press green to get to the enter check number screen. Now the devices, or the check is paid out on the device, but it needs to be entered in the micros as well. The server will sign back into the workstation, pick up the open check, go to the payment screen, and then press Pay at Table Final. Now notice right now there's no tip applied here, and you don't see the payment. You're going to see both of those show up as soon as I hit Pay at Table Final. There's your tip, there's your payment. A closed check prints at the workstation, and you're all done. It's completely reconciled. There's no need to do any balancing or reconciling at the end of the shift. Since the guest expects to be able to insert their card as soon as you hand them the device, please instruct them to wait for the prompt. I'm going to show you what happens when you pull up a check. We're going to select it. We're going to pay it full. Now it's at the prompt for the tip. You hand the device to the guest, and the guest, without even looking at it, inserts their card out of habit. They're able to select a tip amount now, but then it's going to go to a screen that says 101 OK. Instruct the guest to remove their card, press OK, and then wait for the prompt to insert. You can see that the tip is still on there, and the guest can finish processing their payment as usual. Okay, let's say the guest is flying out of Canada and they want to use up their Canadian cash before they get on the plane. With your old system, it did not matter if you did the cash and then the credit card or debit card, but with the new system that's fully integrated, once you start paying on the pay at table device, you need to pay it out in full. So that means that any cash or any airline vouchers need to be applied at the workstation first. So here I have a check up on the screen, and I'm going to say this guest has $17.35 in Canadian cash. I'm going to hit the cash key, and it will subtract off that amount. And now the new total is here. I'm going to print the check. And when you take that to the table with the pay at table device, they'll be able to pay out the rest in full at the table. What if the guest wants to pay with 2 credit cards on a single check? First, we're going to pick up the check on the device, and then we're going to choose Other for the amount. And the guest will be, or you as a server, you can ask the guest how much money they would like to put on this first card. So I'm going to apply $10 and press green for enter. Then it's going to ask how much of a tip. They could put the whole tip on here, or they could split it. I'm just going to put 18% on this part. And then insert the card at the prompt. So that would be the guest that was doing this part. It will prompt for a PIN number if necessary. And when it's approved, it will prompt to remove the card. The first copy is for the merchant, and when you press OK, the second copy is for the guest. Press OK again. Okay, now it's still showing that there's $20.45 due. At this point, we said we're going to pay on just one more card, so we can check the full option. And again, we'll put the 18% tip on this portion. The guest would be doing this, of course, and they will insert their card at the prompt. This is a debit card, so they're going to select checking or savings, and then enter their PIN number. Again, it authorizes and tells us not to remove the card, and then remove the card once it's approved. Again, the first copy is for the merchant. Press OK. Second copy is for the guest. Press OK again. Now we get the message that the check is paid in full, and you'll press green, and it will be ready for the next table. To finish the transaction, the server will sign into the workstation, pick up that check, it was this one, go to the payment screen, and press Pay at Table Final. It will bring over both tips, both payments, and close out the check. I want to tell you a little bit about split checks and one additional step that's going to be required with the new pay at table devices. I have here on the screen a check split into 3 groups. I've got /1, /2, and /3 here. I'm going to press quit, and I'm going to say yes, I want to save those changes. Do I want to print the check? This is for group 2. I'm going to say yes. 1 person on that new guest check. and it will print out a check. Now it's looking at group 3. Again, I want to print that check, one person on that as well. Now this print check prompt that comes up here is not the same as the print check key that's above the 8 on your tender screen. So what we're going to have to do is, well, for this last one, for group 1, we're going to hit print check. And this, the original check, will be immediately available to be picked up on the device. The other check numbers, groups 2, group 3, group 4, etc., they are not quite ready to be recognized. They will not be recognized by the pay at table device. So you have to pick them up. I'm going to pick up group 2 and press service. And now it will be found on the pay at table device. Then I'm going to pick up group 3 and press service for that as well. Now all the checks can be picked up and paid out on the pay at table device. Some of our restaurants have takeout windows and cashiers that ring sales. For those people, they'll be using our to-go CCDB key, or in Montreal, Emporter CCDB. I have the check up on the screen. The cashier would press it, and it will actually send a message to the customer. This will be a customer-facing device. Notice it is tethered to the workstation, and the guest will insert their card. There is no prompt for a tip on here because these are not tipped employees, and the guest, as usual, will just follow the prompts. Once it's approved, the guest removes their card, and the check closes out on the workstation and prints a receipt. This is also what would be used if to process a debit card in an offline situation. If the pay at table devices are offline, this is the way that you would process a debit card. Unfortunately, we have no way to apply a tip at this point, but we haven't had the pay at table devices go offline, so hopefully that won't be much of an issue, and we are working on a resolution for that. We have found the pay at table service to be very reliable, but there will be occasions where it will go offline. What you can say to the guest is, please follow me to the workstation. I have a backup device there that can do everything except process a tip on a debit card. That way you're kind of tactfully letting them know the limitation of the system. And as I mentioned before, Freedom Pay is working on a resolution for that. So what I'm going to demonstrate here is a credit card. So I have the check pulled up on the workstation, and I have a tethered device here. The server will press CC authorization, and the tethered device will prompt the guest to insert their credit card. The guest will slide it in, and if a PIN is required, they'll be prompted for that. Once approved, it will prompt to remove the card, and then it's going to print out 2 pieces of paper. You hand these to the guests and say, these are your tip and signature vouchers. This is an opportunity for them to apply a tip and sign because there was not a prompt in the device. Once they have written down their tip, you can hit CC Final, and there will be a prompt for the tip. You enter the tip amount that they wrote down. And the check will close out. tax-exempt transactions are not able to be processed on the pay at table device. So once again, you'll need to bring the guest to the workstation to process on a tethered device. What I have on the screen here is a check rung up, and as you can see, the tax is here. It's $5.43, and I'm going to hit the tax-exempt key and enter the number that's on their card or their letter. We're going to follow the same rules that you always have for accepting tax-exempt transactions. I'm going to just put NPO for a nonprofit organization and a bunch of numbers. Now the tax has been removed and the line says 0. You'll notice also that the screen has changed, and instead of the CC Auto or Auth over here, you now have TaxX Auto. You're going to press that key. It's going to tell the customer to insert their card over here on the device. So they will insert that and follow the prompts. When it's approved, it will tell them to remove their card, and it will print out 2 of these vouchers. You can hand these to the guest and say, these are for tip and signature. That's just kind of a tactful way to let them know that there's no tip prompt on the device. They'll handwrite in a tip, and then I just want you to notice over here that when we did that, the tax came back. So we need to hit tax exempt again. Since we already entered the information, this time you can just hit the enter key. And then you're going to come over here and type or press TaxX Final. Enter the amount of the tip that they hand wrote on the slip. And it will close the checkout. It will print out the tax-exempt voucher that you're used to seeing. You want to have them sign this. And the reference entry didn't show up on here. If that happens at your site, just go ahead and copy it off the letter or the card that they presented. And you want to attach the 3 items, the tax-exempt voucher, the closed check, and the letter from the customer, and save with your shift paperwork. Manager voids cannot be processed at a pay-at-table device. They need to be done at a workstation. I have a manager void up on the screen here showing the negative items. And when I go to the pay screen, I just want to point out that when you hit CC authorization, only in manager void mode, you're going to get a prompt for a tip. You're going to put the amount that was on the original transaction, and then there will be a prompt in the tethered device for the person, the guest, to insert their card. It's going to say return OK with the amount, and if it's a debit card, there will be a prompt for checking or savings, followed by a prompt for the PIN. You can use Manager Void to refund cash, airline voucher, credit card, or debit card. Just a word of warning with Edit Closed Check. You can avoid either a cash payment, an airline voucher payment, or a credit card payment using Edit Closed Check. However, debit cards must always be processed using Manager Voids.